Welcome to the Mighty Oak Show today. So glad to have you with us for another episode. And I hope that you're doing well. Looking forward to our conversation. Before we jump into that, though, I'll remind you, as I do every week, because I am convinced some of you hear what I'm saying but don't do it. So I have to keep reminding you. If you're watching this on YouTube, please take some time to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. Very important. That lets you know when more content comes online. And I feel like, again, like I say this all the time, but I just want to remind you, we're constantly putting out new content, not just this show. We've got a couple of other shows, various topics that we deal with, testimonial videos, tons of stuff, and you're going to miss it if you don't hit the notification bell. So do that, leave us a comment, and maybe you have a question there. We'd like to interact with you there as well. Share this out if you think this would be helpful to someone that you know. If you're listening somewhere else, perhaps you're listening to the podcast version of this show, or you're listening over at Mojo50, our partners there. Again, when the show is over, take some time, go to YouTube, look up the Mighty Oaks Foundation on YouTube. You'll find our channel, subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I was going to say notify. Don't notify yourself. Just hit the notification bell and keep track of what we're up to. And again, we'd love to connect with you there. So thank you for that. A lot of good things going on with the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and we know that our audience is consistently changing. Folks coming and going, and over the last several months, in spite of everything that's happening, we've added a number of followers on our social media platforms and here on YouTube and on the various radio stations that carry us as well. So wanted to talk to you today more specifically about what we do at Mighty Oaks. We talk about trauma on this show. We talk about moving forward and so many issues, often telling stories about those who have overcome difficulties in their lives. But today, wanted to talk more specifically about the Mighty Oaks Foundation and what we do as an organization, and in this moment in time, how we can be a help to perhaps yourself or someone that you know. And to do that, a guest that is familiar certainly to our audience, Branden Kunath is our National Programs Director here at the Mighty Oaks Foundation. And what that means, in essence, is that Branden runs all of our programs across the country. And wanted to have a conversation today about who we are, for those that aren't familiar, how to get involved with what we do, and then what we're doing right now, as things have changed so much, what we're doing right now. So appreciate your time.
Glad to be here.
Stepping out of your office.
That was a far journey.
Into our studio. But an important conversation, and I think, particularly right now, we know that with the lockdowns in various states, and some have been lifted and then they've been reapplied, a lot of folks are isolated right now. Mm-hmm. And one of the conversations that has happened a little bit, hasn't happened nearly to the extent that it should in terms of the health implications across the country, is how isolation impacts the mental health of people who may already be struggling, how it impacts family relationships, how it impacts so many areas of life, that once the health part of this is over, once we get back to normal life, whatever that looks like, a lot of the emotional and the psychological and the relational impacts of this will still be there. And we'll be dealing with this for quite a while. Absolutely. Because of isolation. One of the important aspects of what we talk about in our program is that no man, no person should fight alone. Mm-hmm. You should not be isolated. And so I'd like to talk about that from your perspective for a minute, isolation. But before we get there, briefly explain what Mighty Oaks is, what we do, and how we do it, and then let's talk about where we are right now in terms of isolation, and then what we're doing to deal with that as an organization.
Yeah. So Mighty Oaks is a faith-based nonprofit where we our mission is to help veterans, active duty servicemen, their families, as well as first responders. So it could be police, fire, rescue, and we bring guests or participants to one of the 4 locations that we offer free of charge. Not necessarily free of charge, but we don't charge them.
Free to them.
Somebody's got to foot the bill, but we bring them to one of our locations, and we have a 5-day what we call the Legacy Program, where we run them through a pretty intensive peer-to-peer mentorship program. It's non-clinical, but they're going to be among and surrounded by guys that kind of speak the language or been there, done that, you know, got the T-shirt, wore it plenty of times, that kind of scenario. But it's a chance for them to really be able to unpack those burdens and things that have been keeping them held back, or the trauma that they're dealing with, that they don't know how to really wrestle through it, or even what it means. And even some of the guys and women that come through, they don't realize they have the issues, or they might think it's just a small problem. And then when they get in there and they start digging and peeling back the layers of the onion, they're like, wow, this is much deeper than what they thought. So it gives them a chance to really attack what's going on in their life, and it could be from many different things, from combat service, or just military time, or the transition. But we really try to focus on separating what's what. Why are you dealing with this anxiety? Why are you dealing with this anger? And not trying just to kind of lump everything in one thing, throw some medicine at it, or some breathing techniques, and then send them on their way. But really get down in the weeds with them, and set them up for success, to let them know, like, you still got a lot to offer. Just because you're not wearing your uniform, or you're not that position in the military, or whatever service that you're doing, there's more for you to do out there. There's still more for you to offer. There's much more to life than just being the stay-at-home mom, that all she knew was being stationed at a base somewhere and dealing with her husband deploying, coming back, disrupting everything that she had worked so hard to worked so hard to establish, and just working through that transition, and understanding you're not alone. You're not the only person that's been through that scenario. I mean, how many times have we came across guys where that's what they said, I thought I was the only one. But we really try to attack everything from that angle of who we're created to be, and get that truth to the people, so that they can go on and live the life they were supposed to. So
the programs are a couple things. One, they're segregated, in meaning we have men's programs and women's programs. And the purpose for that, people ask, why do you do that? Isn't everyone's service equal? It's because men tend to do better. They're more transparent. They're more open when there aren't women there. And the same on the other side, right? And so it's important to understand that. I think it's also important to understand that when we talk about trauma, a lot of the trauma that people deal with was created by, husbands could look to, a woman in their life that created some of that trauma. Certainly the women could say, there was a man in my life. And so we segregate the program out that way between men and women, and that's very, very helpful, and I think adds a level of comfort to many. But, and you alluded to this, we also support spouses. So it's the veterans, it's the active duty service members, the first responder, and then their spouse, because we know that so much of what they've dealt with is unique. Oh yeah. And so we try to support the spouse as well. Our team leaders on both sides, on the men's program, on the women's program, are people who have experienced military service, who have, lived the life that they're talking about, and so they can relate to what's happening. We are a faith-based organization, a faith-based program. We approach all of this from a position of creation, and how does that impact our lives? What does that mean? Do people who attend our program need to have a particular faith background or to believe anything? Do they need to be Christians? Do they need to believe like us in order to attend our program? Absolutely not. Yeah. And that's a question we get often. Yeah. Is the qualifications, and I've tried to make it clear as possible, as if you served in some form. Could have been you just got out 2 days ago, could be 20 years ago. And you don't have to have been in combat either. Yeah, and then that's the other piece of it is people thinking that they have to, have done a certain amount of deployments, or went on a certain deployment, or gotten the combat award, if you will, in order to be eligible to go. But that's where we have learned that everyone deals with trauma. Everyone experiences trauma, and while trauma is trauma, it's individual, and it's particular to that person, but it gives them a chance to see the reality that they're not the only one. Right. But we've had pretty much anybody under the sun attend the program. You mean from a belief perspective? A belief background, a military background, whether, they could have been just a simple,
admin person, all the way up to,
just a simple admin person.
Yeah, which I've had plenty of simple run-ins with those guys, but hey, when you need to be paid or get your stuff taken care of, they're always there. But my point is from somebody from just the kind of everyday big force machine military to the more special operations, smaller communities, we've had everyone within that scope. The brigadier general has been our highest rank, all the way down to a private. Yeah. So everyone comes and it could be somebody from whatever faith background as well. They can come in and be a Christian for 2 days, or never even knew what the Bible even
Some are
said.
angry with God,
and a lot of them are. A great, even guys that would consider themselves strong Christians still have like an anger or just the question of why, and they're able to come and really be able to focus and start peeling away and hopefully listen to us to why we can share, hey, what's worked for us. Because again, all of the leadership started as a student. So just as I sat in that same room, everyone else that's a team leader, mentor, even yourself, all the way to Chad. We know the curriculum because it was taught to us, and we had to go through and wrestle with it ourselves, and we've come on the other end. And as Chad says, it's like having that almost that cure for some kind of major disease. And the question is, are you going to kind of hold it and hold it to yourself, or are you going to try to get it to everyone that you could possibly get it to? And that's honestly what we do. We understand not everybody's going to fully agree with us from the first day and even when they leave, but there's always something there that they can latch onto and go away from, back to their life, and allow that one little thing to make them better if they choose to.
This is something you and I were talking about yesterday, and we get asked this question a lot, not often by students, but by people outside of the organization, is, so what happens after the program? The aftercare is kind of the broad banner that we use to talk about what happens after the program. But can you talk about, because I know a lot of people go to programs, they're excited, they go home, and then they never hear from the program again, or they can't apply the tools. Can you talk about mentors, talk about us doing our best to connect to communities when they get home, whether that's a church community or what that looks like, how we support with counseling and those kind of things. Can you talk through some of the aftercare process or elements for a student? Yeah,
so having gone through from kind of the beginning stages of Mighty Oaks and building the course that we have, where it was Fight Club to Legacy program now, we've learned a lot, and we've had to make a lot of course corrections along the way. And one of those big things that we learned was when guys leave, and what are they going home to? The realization that just because they came to any program and did great things, learned great things, I mean, they could have learned the best thing in the world. But if they don't know how to transition and implement that when they go home, it's almost for nothing. But then the other realization of them being at the program or choosing to get better doesn't get rid of the issues that they've had prior to going. The issue between that person and their wife, or an addiction or something like that, it just doesn't disappear. So they're going to return back to that. So trying to set them up the best way possible to be successful when they go back, and that aftercare is how we've kind of tackled that, setting them up with a good church that. The mentor, that you mentioned, he's going to search that person's local area and try to find the best church that they can connect them with, so that they have a good church home to go to. And it's not just they're going to check online and, oh, here's one in your area. They do it pretty intensive,
and it's personal. So I think that's something important to remember too, right? Like the mentor is not sitting in an office somewhere detached from the program. A mentor goes through the program with the students, gets to know the students, and then plugs them into a church that
exactly
makes sense for that person.
Yeah, the mentor is a like-minded person, just like everybody else there, and they're able to sit in all the classes. They're teaching the classes. They're able to do more of the one-on-one conversations of those kind of the questions or concerns that would need a longer discussion.
They know the students well. Yeah.
So I mean, the participants, when they're going through, they'll get a class. It could be on character, legacy, brotherhood, whatever. There's 15 topics, but then after that class, they'll go into their breakout. So you go from the large group setting of 20 people, much less now because restrictions. Yeah. But even from there, they'll go to a smaller group in their team, which we call breakout session. And then in that breakout session, that's where they really dig deep. There's specific questions that kind of would kickstart the conversation. But that team leader's main job and their mission is to get the guys and gals talking during that time. Is to get them talking so they can start pulling that stuff out. Because once you pull the line, then it's kind of hard to stop them. So it's delicate, but that mentor will be sitting there listening to them, from a maybe right in the meeting, or he might be off just a little bit, just gathering ways that he could support them. That's that mentor's role, is to be 100% support for those participants. So the ones that maybe need a counselor or is looking for a new church to go to, or just even the aftercare aspect of staying in contact and getting connected with one of our outposts, which is another piece of the outcare. But we've taken specific steps to provide as much support as we can reasonably do without doing everything for them. One of the big things that really works for us is the enabling that person to understand that they still have plenty of offer, like I said, and get them back on their feet, and that they still have got a big mission in front of them.
And you be personally responsible.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is whatever happened in the past happened. That's great. Let's focus on it. Let's learn how to deal with it, and let's move on beyond that, because you still have plenty of days ahead of you.
That's good.
So how do you attack each day, knowing not every day is going to be a good one, but having that resilience, having that perseverance to push through, and knowing that you have people that you can go back and rely on. That mentor, your team leader, the other individuals that you went to the program with, and again, that's what I've found has really helped separate us from other organizations. Not saying that they're doing anything bad, or they're not doing it right. We just found out that that's one of the big pillars needed for many when they get done with the program, and not sending them home with just a cool sword and a certificate and a nice shirt, but sending them home with some support, and then gradually staying in contact with them, but gradually separating our responsibility with them to get them back on their feet and stay moving on.
That's good. So the mentors help with that process. A couple of things they can do. We do try to push graduates to a local church if they don't have one, because the church is equipped to minister to families and to individuals, and they're in the community and they can be there all the time. So that's a really important step. Something else the mentor can do, we have a huge network of counselors, biblical counselors that we're connected to, we have access to. And so those mentors can talk to, a graduate and understand they need, deeper counseling and they need ongoing counseling. So they'll connect them to a counselor. They can help facilitate a marriage program for, the graduate and their spouse. So all of these things are possible outside of the program, after the program, for a period of time. And really, once you've graduated, you can always reach back and say, I need help. And that's really important.
Yeah, and even that, even somebody that comes through one time, there's still the option for them to be able to come back. Just recently, we've had a couple of guys that popped back up on our radar, whether it was through a recommendation or they just reached out to us and said, hey, what's the possibility? And we've taken plenty of them. We call them reattacks, and we get it. Not everybody's going to get it the full 100% the first time they come through. And we've had guys come through, not unfortunately, but it took them several 8, 9
couple reattacks.
But if that's what it takes, then that's what we're going to do. We have a process with that of making sure that they're not just trying to come back just to hang out again. We connect them with my aftercare manager, Robert, and he'll work with them and see is it the best approach to get them to a program, or like you'd mentioned, is there something deeper, more there's a bigger issue that needs to be addressed rather than you just need a kind of a reattack tune-up kind of thing. And we try to do as best as we can to support everybody and bring them through a process that really helps them to get to a point where they need to be, so they can be the person, as we say, that they were created to be.
Yeah, that's good. So we view our program as we might say trauma care or intensive programming for that week. Mm-hmm. We do our best to walk through a graduate after the fact. We have now come through this season, and you and I talked about this a couple of months ago, where locations where we have our programs have been shut down, where government agencies are telling people they need to isolate. Mm-hmm. We know that anecdotally, suicide rates, even amongst veterans, are going up. We're told that the suicide rate is just over 20 a day, veterans taking their lives, almost 4 active duty service members a day taking their lives, not to mention all of the trauma to families and all of those kind of things. Throughout this time of COVID and all of the isolation stuff that we're dealing with, those rates have gone up in many communities. It's hard to track. It's hard to know exactly what's happening there. We know that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, the number of people call when they're feeling suicidal or need someone to talk to, the number of calls there has gone up almost 4,000% over this time last year. So clearly there are some real mental health implications to the isolation. And one of the groups of people being left out, I believe, I've written on this a little bit, we've talked about this, is the veteran. That's who we work with. I think other people who are struggling with depression and those kind of things would be in this category as well. But can you talk about why isolation is so damaging to folks who have dealt with trauma or who are really struggling? So many of the people that come to our program have attempted suicide, or they have, we would say, ideated. They've talked about suicide. They think about suicide. They've experienced depression. There may be some chemical or substance abuse, and now they're all alone. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the impact that isolation has, or the reason that we would say you should not isolate?
Yeah, well, it's exactly that. No one should isolate. Like, we know that even in a tactical situation, you want to try to cut off any supplies or anything on that advancing unit or anybody that's out there.
Isolate them.
And you isolate them to separate them and make them very vulnerable. Right. The same thing of animals. The predator will go after the weakest animal in the herd, and then they will cut them off and isolate them. Yeah. So it's no different in the aspect of people that are dealing with things. And let's face it, there's those days where you don't want to be bothered.
Right.
And that should...
Sometimes it's most days.
Well, in our world, definitely. But and not saying that that's bad, but it shouldn't be the standard. Yeah. It shouldn't be an all-day thing. Yeah. And I know for me personally, those days when they seem to get too long, I'm not very healthy on the other end. My sleep is messed up, and I just feel, just bad, and then the depression kicks in, and that's where that slippery slope is. So you just go downhill from there, and so you don't have the chance to have any kind of encouraging word. Right. You don't have anybody coming behind you and saying, "Hey, no, you need to get up." Like, there's a reason why you need to get up. You need to do this. You need to get moving. And so we preach. Many other organizations preach, and just across the board, we understand never to isolate. One of the main things that's connected to suicide through research and just knowing firsthand knowledge, one common denominator of all of it was the person isolated themselves. The majority of suicides that I know personally are the guys that, you know, just did it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, people knew that they weren't doing necessarily good, but they never thought that they would take that, you know, and not to say that people that don't put out the messages or, you know, have the signs out there don't do it, but the majority, me personally, were ones that just completely cut themselves off. And then it's, the after effect is like, oh man, why didn't we see something? Or what could we have done before? And there's really not much, because they chose to isolate themselves. So we know that that's a very, very dangerous situation. And so with all the frustrations that are going day to day with just the typical veteran, now you basically tell them you have to isolate. And you know, you can't even order food, you know, and the person has to order the food and it gets left on their doorstep. So now you're just taking something that was already very dangerous, and you're just, I mean, you're making it so much bigger.
And even things like going to appointments at the VA, because, you know, there's so many, you were talking about this a little while ago, there's so many restrictions on even office visits to the doctor, normal stuff that veterans who are struggling would do, even that's taken away.
Yeah, I just recently, I got bounced from phone call to phone call to phone call, and finally when I got to the point of the division or you know, office that I was supposed to get a hold of, I waited on hold for 5 minutes just for the phone to cut off, you know, and I get it. There's a lot going on.
That's not a slam on the VA. It's just this moment in time is demanding these things.
And so where my head's at, and understanding kind of the bigger picture, and you know, it is what it is. When you have somebody who's been consistently let down that way, and they've went to get care, and the care didn't turn out the way they wanted it to, or they've reached out to somebody and that person didn't answer, and you know, that person had said, hey, just let me know if you need anything, call anytime, but you know, that person didn't answer. So when there's that consistent history of just being let down or not getting the outcome that they want, something as simple as that frustration of being bounced through, you know, phone calls to ultimately just be cut off, it's not just an all of a sudden thing. It's you know, repetitive over a series of events that would lead somebody to that, to where they would finally say, you know, enough's enough. You know, we can only take so much, and if they don't have the outlet on the other side to go and connect with somebody that is going to be an encouragement and a positive role model to them, or you know, tell them the things that they need to hear rather than what they want to hear. If those things aren't in play, there's, you know, it shouldn't be a surprise why there's so many suicides in general, but then why it's skyrocketing across the board. Then you take into consideration people not being able to work, trying to figure out how they're going to pay bilbills. You know, kids need to go to school pretty soon, and even in our own home,
is that going to happen?
We're trying to balance and figure out how's that going to work. We've got one computer, they both need it, and you know, all those things build up over time. And if somebody's by themselves, I don't know anybody that can get through that. You know, they might be able to do it for a little bit, but eventually, even if they don't take their life, it's not going to be a good outcome across the board.
There's all of that, and then there's just the constant deluge of bad news. I mean, whether it's social media or network news or, you know, somewhere else, if people still read papers, I don't know if they do, but everything is bad. And then we have an election coming up, and that's bad too. And then we have, you know, the other stuff going on. So you're isolated, you can't get the help you need, you can't have the conversations with people that you need to vent or whatever to hit that release. And then you're being fed constantly that the world is coming to an end. You know?
That idle time is not, you know, positive. You know, it could be good to, you know, relax and kick back, and you know, you might binge watch something on Netflix, and you know, but that should only last for so long. I remember, you know, during typhoon season in Okinawa, the scariest times as for a leader was during typhoon season and wondering what are Marines doing. in the barracks.
You can't get to them.
They're locked.
Yeah.
They're locked down in there. And I know very certain, even though they were told, don't go and buy every amount of beer and whatever you can buy, and stock it up in there.
Yeah.
But I know it happens. So in my mind, man, there's going to be some interesting things going on over there. When I was able to get finally over to the barracks, I walked in there expecting it just to be mayhem, and stuff's going to be broken and dirty, but my point is like,
that's what isolation creates.
That's what it doesn't create a good outcome of anything whatsoever. And it's time and time again we've seen it.
So, okay, with that as the backdrop then, and this is important to understand, because we get asked all of the time why, we'll get to our programming right now, but we have continued our programming. I think the last show you and I did together, we were talking about how when everything shut down, we worked to build a virtual platform. We had virtual programs. It turned from get people into the program to send texts, make phone calls, send emails, do videos, do whatever we can to connect with people. And now, I mean, we're doing everything we can, and we've been blessed, but we're doing everything we can to get people back into in-person programs. And the question gets asked again and again, why do you care so much about people being in person? Why is this so important to you? We've had people talk to us about liability issues with gathering. And even though we're being as careful as we can, in my mind, having done this for a while, the bigger liability issue is allowing people to stay in isolation, allowing people to be denied any kind of connection or service that they need, and get to the point where they feel so hopeless that there is no other alternative. The bigger liability is not COVID-19 or whatever. The bigger liability is, will someone come to the conclusion no one cares and they need to take their lives? And so we've done everything we can. I use that we very broadly. Our team, your team, the programs team, those folks have been, just swinging every day to make this happen. I mean, week after week, we normally stagger our programs and we have a pretty good rhythm. Since June, there has been no good rhythm. It's been week after week after week after week of programming because it's that important.
Yeah, the only rhythm has been constant.
Yeah.
It's just like, go.
Right.
I'm so thankful for guys that have come alongside and joined the team. Kevin Schroeder, Justin Reinwan, Jamie Warner, Bill Coate, who are my program managers, program facilitators. Robert Kells, the aftercare manager. John Davis, just knocking out. We're still getting applications, and they're still coming in on a very, very consistent basis. And even the women's team that pulled together and got prepped and ready to go. And unfortunately, the day prior, we got the news that, hey, you're not going to be able to do the session in California.
The day prior, right?
Yeah, the day prior. So that was a fun day. After that, and trying to figure out, okay, well, what do we do now? But scrambling to put together, okay, even when this whole thing first kind of started, I looked at, okay, we know what we can't do, but let's look at what we can do. And that's how, the phone calls and the checkups, and then the virtual program, thanks to Luis Rivera, who was like, hey, let's use this platform. And we were able to all come together and put, our minds together and be able to develop, okay, this is what we can do, instead of just sitting around and saying, oh, it is what it is. But knowing on the other side, the worst case scenario. And even still to this day, the worst case scenario for me is somebody saying, no, I don't want to go because of whatever, or me saying, hey, look, we don't have a program for you. We had to shut down. And then the worst case scenario.
What happens there? It's regular that we have conversations with people that will say something like this: I'm hanging on till I can get to the program, and hopefully I'll find something there. And if I don't know that I can go on. So when we're going through a season like this and people are saying, all right, I'm on the calendar, I've got this schedule, I've got a plane ticket, I'm going to this program, that's kind of their hope. And if we take that away from them, in a sense, not to be overly dramatic, but in a sense, we've taken their hope away, and they just go, well, I guess there is no other option.
But that goes back to what I was talking about with the levels of frustration that build up over time, and then when you're consistently let down.
Yeah.
You know, with somebody for somebody to really get to the point where we are an attractive choice, meaning they're going to go to a faith-based program that's well outside of their comfort zone, where they're going to have to travel, they're going to go to a place where they've probably never been before, and be around complete strangers.
Talk about things they don't want to talk about.
Yeah, if they've never really taken a look at themselves of being courageous, I mean, that alone, to take that step should be a clear, clear depiction of that, as evidence for themselves. But for them to get to that point, they've taken some pretty bold leaps. And then when you get to the point of, okay, I'm ready to go. Yeah. And they get past all the jitters or make the decision, get packed and ready to go, and then they get a call or an email saying, hey, look, we're shut down. My biggest fear is that part of, okay, well, there went that shot, because like you said, we're many people's last ditch effort. We're the end of the rope for many people. There were several guys who joined the very first virtual session that said, honestly, I don't know how much longer I could have held on. If they got. And
one guy said specifically, right, I would not have made it if I didn't have this program.
Yeah, because during that time we were like July. This was May timeframe, and July was when we were kind of looking at being able to get some stuff done. But I mean, thankfully we were able to figure things out. In June, that's where kind of swung for the fences.
It got real in June.
Yeah, it was.
Went from not doing anything to.
Yeah, it was a busy month, and we're still in a busy time. But June was definitely back to back. July, pretty much the same thing, and even now we're we're in August and we're still doing men's programs. The women came together, was able to do that online program. It was.
Fun is not the right word, but it was super encouraging to watch the women transition. Having gotten the word on Monday afternoon, right? I think it was Monday afternoon, like late in the day.
The end of the day.
You can't start your program tomorrow. So Tuesday they should have started. I think Wednesday
was when all the students would show up.
And they kicked off a virtual program. Those women came, because women are smarter than guys. They came together and said, and Luis was the one who led them through that, right? Yeah. But they did it, and that's been the spirit, that's been the attitude that we've maintained, and I'm so proud of just our organization across the board, because this touches everything for us. I mean, from our marketing team and Michael Cameron, our marketing director's here, our finance folks, like adjusting everything to work a new system, just across the board. With shipping stuff, moving stuff. We went from this is the plan that was established back in October last year to on a week-to-week basis, everyone is shifting. Yeah. And they're just doing it because it's that important that we do this.
Yeah, and it could have been easier just to say, okay, look,
we don't wait it out.
We don't know what's going to happen. We'll put everything on pause. But like you said, there's we understand what's on the other side of it, and things still need to get done. People's issues and their frustrations and relationships between each other, they just don't get put on hold as well. So again, we had to look at, okay, we know what we can't, but let's look at what we can, and let's push forward on that.
And we have an incredible team. There's frustrations, right? But
of course.
I've not heard one person complain about, let's do what we can to reach more people and to pull them in and to do the thing, whatever the thing looks like. It's been pretty amazing to watch.
Across the board, it's been like, I think we can add more.
Yeah,
I think we can add more.
Do it. Yeah.
And I've taken a real strong look at, hard look at, okay, well, what's our total max that we're allowed to have there? Because we're still, still abiding by all the state restrictions and all the guidelines. So, our overall attendance has pretty much been cut to about 50%, to where we're, doing a bed space, just to make sure everybody's good. Right. Even when we eat, across the board, just making sure that we're safe as possible. Because even on the other side of it, my personal opinion and feelings towards COVID situation isn't the same as other people. So, you know, they, and with being immune compromised.
Sure, yeah.
Plenty of
a lot of issues at work.
Several people that come, you know, different stages of their life, you know, they're taking a huge chance on traveling. You know, people are, you know, going to the airport and being locked in a you know, aluminum flying can for a little bit to go to a place where they've never been before, to be among a bunch of guys. So you know, we're not trying to you know, ignore that there's an issue out there at all. We're just trying to look at, man, we've got to have a balance with this.
Trying to work within the context.
So you know, where can we still operate safely, but still get the help and healing that many people are applying on a daily basis to get to us. I mean, it's you know, it's not an easy thing, but you know, it's what we have to do.
Another area that's been pretty encouraging. So, you know, you spend several weeks working on a calendar for the upcoming year. You put out a calendar, and I forget when we do that. Late August, September, something like that. It's finalized
Saturday.
By October.
Yeah, this Saturday.
So you do that, like, you know, several months before the year starts for us. And since March, I think you've put out a new calendar every week, because everything's changing, where we can go, how we can go there, you know, whatever. One of the things has been encouraging is to watch our supporters, people who we have relationships with that have places where we can have programs. You know, so many people, and we won't name them, but so many people have stepped up in a really big way. People who, you know, most folks would never know their names, would not know who they are. And we're thankful for all of our supporters, but we've had some people step up in a big way that have allowed us to continue to have programs, have allowed us to do it on a week's notice, have adjusted their own lives so that we could get people to one of the facilities that they, you know, would own or manage. And to see how people are willing to step up for men and women who have served has been, I mean, to me, has been super encouraging.
Yeah, and with that, like the encouragement part of it, but I would be negligent in my position here if I ignored that. That people are willing to do that of, you know, their own time, in their own money, facilities, to support us and make sure those that need to get to the program get there, because they know what's at stake. They've either seen it firsthand several times, or, you know, witnessed it personally, but, you know, among a relationship that, you know, they had with someone, and just even on, you know, on our social media, the comments of, you know, because we're posting what's going on and trying to keep people updated to let them know, hey, we're still doing things. Because on one side we have applicants or individuals contacting us, hey, are you guys open? Are you guys open for business? Which I'm thankful to say, yeah, we are, you know. But on the other side, the supporters and just people that just follow us are highly encouraged that we're still doing things, and that they can go to our Facebook page and see that, oh, there's a program going. Oh, look at all these guys that are being helped, and they're able to follow that and you know, be in the fight with us. Yeah,
it's awesome. I don't think we always remember that. It's funny, you and I have had this conversation several times in the last couple of weeks, but we sometimes forget that what we do, we're able to do because of men and women who support us.
Absolutely.
People who will never meet one of the folks who comes to our program, people who, you know, they just know there's a need and they support us. It's been amazing to see people continue to give online, to see people, you know, mail in checks, to see people donate financially, and then donate, you know, properties and other things. Because, and again, we don't always talk about this, but for a student to attend our program, it costs them nothing. And if they need to fly to wherever we are, or, you know, they need to get there, we'll cover that cost as well. And we say we, right, because we're the heroes. We just steward over the money that donors put in our hands to get students to the programs they need to get to. And it's really that simple. It's not our money. Our donors think it's important enough that this happens. They continue to support us, even during a very difficult time for a lot of real people, to get the men and women who have served us to the help they need.
Yeah, when they ask, how can I help or what can I do, they really mean it.
They mean it.
And it's not just a just a simple question or
it's not just a yellow ribbon bumper sticker.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there, but
yeah.
but honestly, I mean, they they put their money where their mouth is, and it's amazing to see that, and just to be able to see people do that. And then yesterday I had the police department was across, one of them parked across from my house, just because next to me there was a emergency response where fire had to show up, and I just got done working out, and I seen that they're a newer police department where they separated from Riverside County Sheriff. And so I was like, oh man, I went and grabbed some pamphlets and some books and stuff and everything, and just ran it across the street to the guy and handed it to him and said, hey, just so you know, this is who we are, this is what we do. In one sense of, hey, because I know for a fact they, in this area, they run into military people all the time.
For sure.
So here, let them know who we are, just as a resource, as an option. But also, we also serve you guys as well.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay. Well, he started asking me the basic questions, and I filled them in. And when I got to the point of, we cover all the cost, he was like, do what? Like he really couldn't put that together. He's like, the nothing's free. I'm like, of course, nothing's free. Right. Like, there's people across the United States that understand what's at stake, and they understand what we do, and they trust us. And that's the biggest part of it. They trust us, that they are comfortable with submitting however much that they want to send to us, and they know that it's going to go to a good cause.
It's amazing when you think about, and this is not a pitch for donations. I'm just thankful for the people who give.
No.
But the perspective of it, I think people really understand, and maybe it's the season we're in, I don't know, but they can put their money in a lot of places, but the return on the investment when you're investing in a program that gives the life back to a veteran or a service member or a first responder, often we see a restoration of families and hope and investment then in their communities. It really is an incredible financial investment, and that's, I worry about this all the time, being a good steward of the resources that are given to us, because it's so important.
Yeah, it's interesting that I can be almost I don't want to say a cheapskate in this section, but my normal finances, my wife's like, what are you doing? But that's the importance of it, as those people, the people that they're supporting are the people in their neighborhood, in their communities and stuff. And so, I mean, they may not ever meet the person directly, or even know that somebody down the street may have went to the program, but I mean, those are the people that they're supporting. And like you said, we couldn't do any of this. Right. I mean, we could, but not on the scale and level that we're able to. And in the way I look at it is, we try to pull all the excuses off the table that would prevent somebody. It's hard enough to get somebody to go in the first place, but then even the hurdles that need to be jumped after that. So if we can remove all those, we have a better chance to get them to a session, sit down with them, be able to share what we need to share with them, and work with them through the week and set them up for success. So when they go home, they can return back to their family, restore relationships with their wife, kids, work, whatever it may be, and get back on track. That's awesome. And that they're not done. And, they hung up their uniform. They're not a sergeant in the Marine Corps anymore, or whatever. They've still got a big mission in front of them. We're not promised tomorrow, but whatever you have at that moment, take it.
It's good.
Full on.
Yeah, it's good to be open and good to press, and so thankful for the team here at Mighty Oaks makes it happen. Yeah, it's awesome. If you listen to this and maybe this is new information to you, I would encourage you, go to our website, mightyoaksprograms.org, mightyoaksprograms.org. A couple of things you can do there. One, you can just learn about us and what we do and what we talked about. There are links there to other media, to social media, to videos that we've done, to a lot of other things. Maybe you're someone who needs a program like Mighty Oaks, and you'd say, how do I know if I qualify? If you are a veteran, an active duty service member, a first responder, or the spouse of one of those, you qualify. And we can answer any questions you have beyond that, but you qualify. There's a place for you to apply on our website. Please do that. That goes to our applications coordinator, John Davis. He'll get back to you. The team will engage with you, and we'll set you up for a time to attend. Again, there's no cost to attend. And even travel is something that, as we just discussed, we'll be taken care of as well. So that's there. You can learn about us. You can apply. There's also an opportunity for you to support financially the work that Mighty Oaks does if you'd like to do that. And we'd love for you to connect with us there. Also connect with us on our social media platforms. We have a lot of content that we put out. Facebook is a great place to connect. YouTube, of course, as I've mentioned several times, and I'm sure you're all subscribing and hitting the notification bell right there because I've asked you so many times. But YouTube is a great place, and there are other places as well. But we would love to connect with you there, and just appreciate your support. And I know we do this show. It's on YouTube. There's some radio stations that carry it. Mojo 50, tremendous partners there. We love those guys there. And a lot of folks support us because they've heard about us and they love those who have served. Thank you for that, and thank you for allowing us to come to you. Look forward to next time.
Yeah.
Whenever next time will be. Who knows?
Probably sooner than
Probably
later.
soon. When Michael tells us we need to sit down and talk again, we'll do it.
We need an update. Hurry up, get in here.
Man, appreciate you guys. Thank you, and look forward to next time.